never believed in ghosts. That is until I stumbled upon the forgotten forest. The thick trees loomed over me as I ventured deeper into the forest, my curiosity getting the best of me. It was said that this forest was cursed, and anyone who entered would never come out. But I didn't believe in such nonsense. I thought it was just a story to scare children. As I walked further, the air grew colder and the trees seemed to close in on me. I could feel a sense of unease creeping up my spine, but I pushed it aside and continued on. That's when I saw it, a figure standing in the distance, watching me. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. It couldn't be a person, as no one dared to enter this forest. And yet, there it was, slowly beckoning me closer with its long, bony fingers. As I approached, the figure became clearer. It was a woman, her skin pale and her eyes empty. She wore a tattered dress and her hair was wild and tangled. I could sense an overwhelming sadness emanating from her. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the depths of the forest. I followed her gaze and saw countless other figures emerging from the shadows. They all had the same hollow eyes and lifeless expressions. I couldn't move, fear paralyzing me as the ghosts surrounded me. I could feel their cold breath on my skin, and I was sure that this was the end. But then, one of the ghosts spoke to me in a whisper. "We are the forgotten ones, trapped in this forest for eternity. We were once alive, but our memories were erased by a powerful curse. We roam this forest, searching for someone to remember us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These were the ghosts of people who had been forgotten by the world. My heart ached for them, and I knew I couldn't leave them in this purgatory. With a newfound determination, I promised to help them. I would spread their stories and memories, so they would never be forgotten again. And with that, the ghosts disappeared, leaving me alone in the forest. As I made my way back, I knew that my life would never be the same. I had encountered the ghosts of the forgotten forest, and they had changed me. From that day on, I dedicated my life to sharing their stories and making sure they were never forgotten again. And as for the forest, I never set foot in there again. Some secrets are better left untouched. I never thought I would find myself in such a terrifying situation. It all started when my friend, Sarah, invited me to spend the weekend at her family's cabin in the woods near Hollow Hill. They had recently inherited the cabin from her late grandmother, and Sarah was eager to show it to me. As we drove up the winding road, the atmosphere seemed to change. The trees became thicker and the air grew colder. Sarah's family had warned her about the strange occurrences that happened in this area, but she brushed them off as mere superstitions. When we arrived at the cabin, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The cabin itself was old and run down, and it seemed to be surrounded by an eerie silence. Sarah, on the other hand, was giddy with excitement as she showed me around the place. As the sun set, we decided to explore the woods surrounding the cabin. Sarah led the way, eager to show me a hidden trail that her grandmother had told her about. As we walked deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched. Suddenly, Sarah stopped in her tracks and pointed to a clearing ahead. At first, I couldn't see anything, but then I noticed that there was a small entrance leading underground. Sarah told me that her grandmother had always warned her never to go near that entrance, but curiosity got the best of us, and we couldn't resist the temptation to explore. As we descended into the dark tunnel, I could feel my heart racing. The air was thick and musty, and the only source of light came from our flashlights. As we made our way through the winding tunnels, we came across strange symbols and drawings on the walls. It was then that Sarah told me about the dark secret of Hollow Hill. According to her grandmother, the hill was a sacred place for a group of witches who lived in the area centuries ago. Legend had it that the witches had made a pact with the devil, sacrificing innocent lives in exchange for immortality. The entrance we had stumbled upon was said to lead to their underground lair, where they performed their dark rituals. As we continued deeper into the tunnels, we heard strange whispers and felt an ominous presence around us. I wanted to turn back, but Sarah was determined to find out more about her family's history. We finally reached a large chamber, and what we saw there will haunt me for the rest of my life. In the center of the room, there was a dark altar, and on it lay a figure covered in a black cloak. The air was filled with the stench of death, and I could feel the presence of evil all around us. Before we could even react, the figure rose and turned towards us. It was a woman, but her face was twisted and contorted, with eyes as black as coal. She let out a blood-curdling scream, and suddenly, we were surrounded by more of these demonic figures. In a state of panic, we ran for our lives, not stopping until we reached the safety of the cabin. We never spoke about that night again, and Sarah's family sold the cabin soon after. To this day, I can still hear the screams and whispers from that dark chamber in my nightmares. The dark secret of Hollow Hill will forever haunt me, and I will never forget the terror that we encountered in those tunnels. It was a dark and stormy night, and the clock had just struck midnight. I found myself standing at the entrance of a deserted carnival, its once bright and colorful lights now flickering ominously in the wind. I had always been intrigued by the idea of a haunted carnival, and when I heard rumors of one in my town, I couldn't resist the temptation to explore it. As I stepped inside, the creaking sound of the rusty gates closing behind me sent shivers down my spine. The atmosphere was eerie, and I could feel the presence of something sinister lurking in the shadows. I cautiously made my way through the abandoned rides and games, my heart racing with every step I took. The only source of light was the full moon that occasionally peeked through the dark clouds, casting an eerie glow over the empty carnival. As I walked deeper into the carnival, I began to hear strange noises. It sounded like whispers and laughter, but there was no one else around. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but the feeling of being watched was becoming too intense to ignore. I came across a dilapidated funhouse, and against my better judgment, I decided to go in. The distorted mirrors and creepy clowns only added to the already terrifying atmosphere. But what caught my attention was a room at the end of the hallway that seemed to be emitting a faint light. I cautiously made my way towards it, my heart pounding in my chest. As I entered the room, I was greeted by a sight that made me freeze in fear. It was a group of ghostly figures, dressed in tattered carnival costumes, dancing and laughing in a circle. I tried to scream, but no sound would come out of my mouth. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or even look away. The ghosts seemed to be beckoning me to join them, and I could feel their cold hands reaching out towards me. Suddenly, the room went dark, and the ghosts disappeared. I was left alone in the darkness, with only my racing heartbeat for company. I knew I had to get out of there, but my legs refused to move. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I heard a loud and menacing laugh behind me. I turned around to see a clown with a twisted and sinister face, holding a blood-stained knife. I knew I had to get out of there before it was too late. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my ears. I could feel the clown's presence behind me, getting closer with every step. Just as I was about to reach the exit, I felt a sharp pain in my back. I screamed and fell to the ground, my vision fading to black. The next thing I knew, I woke up in my bed, drenched in sweat. It took me a moment to realize that it was all just a nightmare. But as I looked out the window, I saw the abandoned carnival in the distance, and I couldn't help but wonder if it was just a dream or if I had actually experienced the horrors of the haunted carnival at midnight.